okay, what the hell happened that I went from destroying my life to being a functioning, productive human being in the span of a month? Like, what happened here?
Welcome home to You Are the Compass with producer and host Jesse Clayton. This is a podcast about the turning points in life that awaken us to new directions and the inner guidance that helps us navigate them. Reset your headings as we dive deep with guest interviews, quick fine-tuned series, and inspiration from all corners of the globe. From wherever in the world you have joined from today, you have arrived. Hi, and welcome home to You Are the Compass, where we have our headings set over to get psyched. Firstly, on the path of how we came to meet our next guest. Whilst the analytics of social media to this day still boggle my mind, I'm of the mindset that you will cross paths with those individuals just when you need it. Or they may track you down from your latest post on running marathons, who knows? John of Get Psyched Fitness connects with highly motivated individuals ready to push limits in fitness, mindset, and well, life in general. John, thanks for joining us and welcome home to You Are the Compass.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Happy to be here.
Your mindset is your reality. A message I already resonate with before I know the content of this book. It would be really great to share with our audience the why and dive deep past the purple jacket cover. Now, before we go for a metaphorical run with this book in question, can you tell us, where does the name Get Psyched Fitness come from?
Yeah, well, so it's kind of a double meaning, and that's why I went with it because, first and foremost, just from an athletic standpoint, you want to get psyched, right? You want to get amped. You want to get excited about what you're doing, the thing that you're trying to accomplish, the goals that you have, the change that you're trying to make in your life, right? So I want the people who work with me to really be into what they're doing, to be psyched about the changes that they're going to make, the progress that they're going to give to themselves, and be ready to attack that. But my story is a little bit different because the way that I got into really challenging myself physically and striving towards the incredible athletic feats that I have been and aim to keep accomplishing was through the help of psychedelics, which is the primary topic of the book. Your Mindset is Your Reality is how my life changed with psychedelics. So it has kind of a double meaning because I also do coach people through how to use psychedelics to make positive changes in their own life.
Nice. And have you always had that vision? Like, did it start off as the running sort of mindset and everything, and then it's branched out into these psychedelics, or did you go the opposite way?
So, it was really the experience that I had about 3 years ago now that allowed me to break free of a number of really destructive habits, from substance abuse to just blatant narcissism to you name it, anxiety, depression, ADHD, a whole list of things that my experience with psychedelics helped to drag me out of and give me this new lease on life. And through that process of shedding who the old John was and getting a very clear vision on who the new John is, it kind of coincided with this complete change in my life and, bringing that to people to help them make the same changes for themselves.
I guess it's going to be different for everyone, but do you find with your clients that they may be fixated on what works for them? So they've been a marathon runner for, 20 years or whatever it may be. I don't know the demographic of your clients yet. If you have someone in that space that's just so fixated on this training program and that's what works for them, but that they might be struggling to mitigate that passion and that drive in their everyday life, because running can't be everything. Fitness is a big part of our life. How would you suggest that they try and translate that over a bit more?
It's kind of like, how do you get someone who's been hyperfixated on one style of training to kind of see things from a broader picture? So really the thing is that I personally was just like you're saying. I was a power lifter throughout my whole teens and 20s. I was focused on one thing, and that's putting more weight on the bar and moving it in, squat, bench, deadlift, so on and so forth. And when I had my awakening, it really showed me that that style of training wasn't going to be something that paid dividends for me, my overall health, how I felt about my body, how I moved, how, I woke up every day, and gave me the clarity to say, okay, what can I do to start moving better? And so now I've got my hand in a number of different things. I do ultra marathon running, I do strongman competitions, I do high intensity interval training competitions. And then in addition to that, I do yoga on my own. I do a lot of biking. I try to challenge myself any way that I can. So I really come to my clients as a complete resource for them to lean on for different training methodologies, different goals, whether that's getting faster or putting up a new bench PR. And so I try to, look at what the client is trying to achieve. If they're an endurance athlete, a lot of times they want to make sure that they have their their injury risk mitigated. And so a lot of that comes down to strength training. It comes down to putting your body in slightly compromised positions and showing them that they are competent and they're able to move their body in ways that maybe they weren't able to. And so my training focuses a lot on form. It focuses a lot on feeding those mental barriers that say, you can't pick up that weight. And then I'll see them and I'll say, yes, you can. And just because you tried one time doesn't mean we're stopping at that one time. We're going to go back. We're going to focus on the form. We're going to make sure that you're focused in on the lift and believe in yourself. And there's so many times when I've had a client who starts out, even in the first session, doing a weight and failing at that the first time that we do it. And then by the end of our training session, they're able to crush it.
Yeah, 100%. And where do you think that want for them to do better comes from? So they may look at the weight and be like, oh, I can't do that. Is it a competitive nature? Is it, I want to do better in my everyday life? What do you think is the tipping point, is the turning point for us to do that?
Yeah. Well, there's an old quote, progress man's distinctive mark alone, not God's, not the beast's. God is, they are, man partly is, and wholly hopes to be. And there's a lot packed into that. And the thing that I like to focus on from that is that we all have the ability to achieve beyond where we currently are and what we believe our own abilities to be. And so helping people tap into that to say, okay, you can go further than you think is possible is a really eye-opening thing. And it really helps, personal development in addition to the strides that they're able to make physically.
John, I have to ask, where does this come from for you? Did you have a mentor in this space like growing up? Did you just have a revelation like a couple of years ago and you're like, yeah, I want to get into this? Or
Well, so it's really been a lifelong pursuit. I grew up playing baseball. That was my primary sport. Played a few other sports here and there, but primarily baseball. And I love to tell the story of, when I was in sixth grade and I thought I was an athlete. I thought I was fast and strong and yada, yada, yada. And they did what was called the Presidential Fitness Award when I was in sixth grade, which tested us on push-ups, sit-ups, mile run, shuttle run, and a flexibility assessment. And I missed the mark in every single one of those tests, which was really eye opening because I didn't realize that my diet was shit and I wasn't doing anything outside of going to practice and playing in games to get myself to that elite level of physicality. But my PE teacher gave me the opportunity to retest for that award in the month following the initial test. And so I went home, I started running. I would do push ups, sit ups on my own. And by the time it came for me to retest, I nailed it. And that just really sparked a love for physical fitness that followed me all throughout my life. But obviously, it's not that simple. I wrote a book about how I escaped addiction and a number of bad habits. And that's something that followed me from the time I was in my teens until I was 29 years old. And then I had this beautiful awakening moment that just showed me how much potential I was locking away through limiting beliefs and was able to tap into that in a really hardcore fashion, really starting at the end of 2023 and have just attacked it like crazy ever since.
yeah, look, I don't know your take on it, though it seems to me like the self-help motivation space just seems to be, like, no pun intended, but a little bit overrun. Can you share with us like what your point of difference is? Like, I know we've just mentioned the book, but would you say
Mhm.
in your competition out there is your main key focus with your clients and how you can sort of tap into, because there's motivational quotes out there, there's ultra marathon coaches and mindset coaches and life coaches. Where do you sort of bring that all together for people?
So I've got a really different story because it involves psychedelics, and so that's something that it breeds a lot of curiosity for people. It's just starting to become mainstream. The ability that psychedelics have to help people tap into what has been there for a long time that they haven't been able to recognize. And so that's one very key differentiating factor. Another is that I am living this experience and I'm growing as my message grows and as the people around me grow. I'm not a finished product yet, right? I haven't accomplished half of the stuff that I want to accomplish. So as I'm doing all the things that I'm doing, uh, it strengthens the message that I put forth in my book, right? And I end my book, you know, 4 months before I did my first ultra marathon, and it it may leave some readers a little bit like, oh shit, wait, how did we get to this point? Because that's really the bread and butter. That's what brings people in, right? Seeing these incredible athletic feats. But the core of the story is that I went from someone who was destroying my life and doing absolutely nothing productive with it to recognizing an opportunity for myself to take a leap of faith and go towards something that really mattered for me. And I continue to live that every single day.
Can you tell us a bit about that experience, the light bulb moment, a little preview to the book?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a whole book about it that's 200 pages long, so it's a little bit difficult. Yeah. Well, so really it was that, my whole life, I refused to accept blame for anything that happened to me in my life. I refused to take responsibility. I blamed everyone else. I blamed circumstance. I blamed, you know, X, Y, and Z, not recognizing that every decision I made along the way was my decision. Whether I could place blame towards someone else for steering me in that direction or influencing my mindset in a certain way. And when I had the experience that I had, it really helped me to get over a number of things that happened earlier in my life, whether that was getting fired from my first job out of college, whether that was an ex-girlfriend that I had of 4.5 years that broke up with me, but I deserved it. I was a piece of shit. Or a move to Connecticut where I really felt secluded from all of my friends and loved ones and everything like that, and really reached this dark time in my life where I was, doing coke until 4 or 5 a.m. half the nights of the week and going online and trying to find anything and anyone to sleep with. Um, and how from the moment that I tried mushrooms for the first time, it allowed me to process all of those things that had happened to me earlier in life and say, okay, one, I no longer feel shame or regret for any of it because I'm here right now, right? So I can't do anything about it. All I can say is, okay, I'm here. And what can I do from this point forward? So there was no longer regret for anything that had happened to me earlier in life. And then there was this intense clarity where I saw the ability to take my life in whatever direction that I wanted, which is something that had never really occurred to me before. I felt really locked into, the path that I had chosen when I started college and, the decisions that I had made earlier in life kind of locking me into something. And I just had this intense moment of clarity where I said, my life is at my fingertips. I can choose to do whatever I want from this point forward. And I've chosen to make the most of it.
It baffles me because it goes so many other ways, doesn't it? People, it suddenly all builds up for them and then they have one of those experiences and then it's just too much. It's like the depression just sets in and, it ends in a horrific way. But you've had such a positive experience with it. People go to therapists, they go to alternative healing. Like my dad's a kinesiologist and they'll go back and have these sessions with these people, very cathartic sessions, but that's built up over years, over time, over the education and the environment that they surround themselves with. And they're like, yep, this is the information that I'm downloading each and every day to make these decisions. But you just had this whole like watershed tipping point, turnaround moment where you're just like, no, um, my life does matter and I can do this and I can do that. That's really powerful.
Yep. Um, with psychedelics, a common thing that I hear is that, it's like 10, 20, whatever number you want to put on it, years of therapy in one session. And that's really what it was for me, is that it was so many things that I had refused to accept that had happened to me earlier in my life, or refused to really learn the lessons from that I needed to learn, that I learned in an instant. I was planning on going to a music festival that was about 2 hours away from me here in Tampa, and I hadn't tried mushrooms since my freshman or my senior year of high school, which was 11, 12 years prior. And I bought some mushrooms in preparation for the festival because
Sure.
I heard they were fun at music festivals. And, it was like, okay, well, let's try it in the few weeks leading up. And the first time that I tried it, it was basically 4 hours straight of crying. And it was coming to acceptance of the end of that relationship that I had mentioned. And that was one of those things where I'm like, wow, that was a really powerful emotional outpouring. I didn't love that, right? I was with one of my friends. I didn't love that I couldn't talk to him or hold a conversation. I was just crying. But I've heard good things about mushrooms. Let's try it again. And the second time that I tried it, it wasn't that big emotional outpouring. But I walked down to the Riverwalk, which is kind of a boardwalk that goes along the river that goes through downtown Tampa. And I went out there, and for the first time in my life, I appreciated natural beauty. And I appreciated the work that everyone put in to make the city what it is. And I appreciated the weather and appreciated the sun and the moon and the stars and the fish in the river that I was walking next to, and all of these little things that I just had never taken the moment to sit and appreciate. And from that moment forward, I understood what anxiety was, because in that moment I didn't have it. Um, and I understood what depression was, because I was no longer, picturing the worst possible case scenarios, or saying my life sucks because of this and that and whatever that I can't control. So that was a really beautiful experience. And the couple weeks after that, I just had like moment after moment after moment where I'm just being more present, whether it's just like talking to the cashier at the supermarket, or bringing someone's cart back for him, or just smiling at someone and having a natural conversation that didn't feel forced and didn't feel like I was just playing a role that I was supposed to play in that time. Um, and then the week before the festival, I tried it one more time because I had not yet tripped. And, if you're familiar with psychedelics, what people picture is all the different fractal patterns and colors, and being in kind of an alternate reality. And that third time was the first time that I actually tripped.
Yeah.
And that was just like a bomb went off. Um, I saw myself on a spider chart with everybody that I'd ever met in my entire life, and they were all connected to me through webbing, with energy pulsating between me and my parents, me and my friends, me and old friends who, if we still had a connection, we'd still keep in contact with each other. The energy would go both ways. But then friends that maybe I would put energy into the relationship, you could see the energy going one way and not coming back. And in that moment, I just recognized so many things that I was putting energy into that I needed to stop. And it allowed me to cut out a lot of noise and focus on the people and the things that actually mattered.
You've had this awakening,
Mhm.
this experience while you've been on them. Did that ever wear off after you had those moments? Does the anxiety like slip back in? Is there a time bomb on it? Or did you just realize that and then be like, nah, my mindset's done. This is what I need to do in order to keep going, to keep seeking out the beauty of life?
The answer to that is no, right? It's not that simple. It's not as simple as just saying, okay, boop, I'm fixed. Um, there's a lot of learning that you have to do. And really, what mushrooms do is allow you to look at yourself with a very clear, objective lens. And so I like to call it going into bystander mode, where essentially you're seeing yourself as other people see you. Or it's like watching yourself on a TV as a character in a TV show, and you're just shouting at the screen, like, come on, go do this, like take action, do what you need to do. And, you know, while you're in that mindset, it becomes very clear. but then they're all lessons that you learn that you take with you after the fact. And so what it allowed me to do is recognize what anxiety was and go into myself and breathe when I would feel it coming on, right? And so with that knowledge came, okay, what can I now do proactively to make sure that I can control this moving forward? And so finding out the things that were triggering the anxiety, and then recognizing the ability that I had to bring myself back to equilibrium and not have it overcome me, but rather be able to control my emotions and work through them in a positive way.
And how does that correlate to physical fitness? Because I know for myself, like I don't do a lot of running, but when I do it, when I'm out hiking, when I'm out diving, whatever it may be, I
Mm.
just get this overwhelming sense of like you get adrenaline pump, you get it's a very meditative state, I like to call it. It's my happy place. But it's when I'm sort of
Mhm.
back home or I'm sitting with my own thoughts. I don't have my friends around me. I'm not out going to music events or whatever it may be. That anxiety starts to creep in. Like you're walking up the street and you're like, oh, what am I doing with my life? Your anxiety starts leveling and your breathing gets affected. How did you first sort of, I guess, adopt that into your running?
So the experience that I had, that I document in the book, took place between October and November of 2022. Uh, I did not put on my running shoes and go for a run until a year later. The first run that I ever did in adulthood was November 14th of 2023, which was just 2 weeks prior to the first ever competition that I did, which was a half marathon Spartan race, which is a half marathon plus 30 different obstacles through woods and waist deep water and all stuff like that. So let me back up. So I had the experience that I had, and it gave me this clarity of like, okay, I can't power lift the way that I have been, right? My body's super tight. I'm really not making progress. Like if I'm going to make progress, I either have to like go way hardcore into this with, you know, putting on an intense amount of weight on my body or using performance enhancing drugs. And it just didn't appeal to me as something that would be the best case scenario for me long term. And so I began to question, how do I actually want to move my body? How do I want to feel? How do I want to look? How do I want to operate on a daily basis? And so between the experience that I had and jumping into competitions, there was a long period of really just trying to figure it out. You spend a lot of my time writing. I was still going to the gym 7 days a week. I've been a 7 day a week person, basically since the time I went to college. And I had wanted to do a Spartan race for the longest time. Back when I was in college, 10, 12 years prior, I tried to organize some friends, didn't work out. I tried to organize friends with my first job out of college, didn't work out. Tried to organize friends for this race in 2023. And I texted everybody like 3 months prior, hey guys, let's do this. Let's get tickets. Let's go. And 2 weeks before, it just occurred to me that no one else was going to join me. And so going into that, I was saying to my friends, well, I'll probably either do the 5 or the 10K. Like I haven't run in over a decade. So I don't see the point in going anything further than that. But I was laying in bed uh, on a Saturday night and I told myself, okay, I'm going to go for a run tomorrow. And if I can run for an hour straight, I'm going to sign up for the half marathon. And as I'm laying in bed, I said, no, we're not doing that. So I got up out of bed, I signed up for the half marathon, and I went and did it 2 weeks later, despite having not run in 10 years. I finished in the top 5%, and really opened my eyes to the incredible athletic prowess that I do have and made me question, okay, what would actually happen if I tried? And so from that moment forward, it was a culmination of everything that I had done earlier in life to prepare me, all the weightlifting, and I've been doing some biking for the year prior. And it was just one of these things where I said, okay, how high can I soar if I actually pour my effort into this? If I take off these limiting beliefs that I'd had for so long of like, I'm not the top athlete, right? When in grade school, I was an athlete, but there was a kid that I went to grade school with that became a professional baseball player, and he was like the top athlete, right? So I couldn't be the top athlete. And so there's just this limiting belief of like, okay, you're not the best, so why try? And so when I did that race and I finished as highly as I did, it just lit this thing in me to say, okay, go for it.
I kind of had a similar experience in what they call primary school here in Australia. I was always the top math student. Always got like 99%. And, when I didn't get that extra
Okay.
1%, I was really down on myself, but always like pretty much top of the school by that point. And then you get to high school, you go in and you've got all this other competition. You get one bad score on a test. And I was like, well, why would I even bother?
Mm-hmm.
So and the mindset of that, I wanted to go and do my pilot's license and stuff. And my dad's like, well, you need you need good mathematics scores for that. But I was like, no, one told me I couldn't do it back then. Yeah, but if you really want it, challenge yourself, like challenge your mindset on it. Think about it a different way. Okay, everyone else is being lawyers. You go and be a doctor or go and be an ultra marathon runner. I find it funny how people try to be so much like the people they admire when there's so many other people out there that are humble about the way they got to. And it's the reason why I sort of reached out, because there's so many people in this space at the minute that have never done marathons before. They've never done swimming competitions before, and they're just excelling to crazy abilities that we didn't think possible. And we're like, well, what training program have
Mm-hmm.
they had? And I was like, no, it actually has nothing to do. It does have a little bit to do with it, but I'm more curious, and I think a lot of people out there, of what your mind is actually processing when you go out for a run. Marathons are a little bit different, I guess, but the longevity of it is quite interesting. John, I'm curious, do you guide people with the use of psychedelics, mushrooms, with a training program, or how would that even come about?
Yeah, well, it's something that I use myself to get the most out of what I do. So psychedelics for me, I've gotten to a point of comfortability with the mindset that it potentiates, where I can feel my body and I can understand my body and um, in a really incredible way on them. And it also helps me to stay centered within myself and my mind. So there's a really beautiful thing that happens with psychedelics when you combine it with training. Um, it actually first occurred to me. I had taken like a half tab of LSD one day and ended up at the gym. And I'm working out and I could feel my muscles contracting in such a different way than I'd ever felt before. And I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. Like I'm able to target down the exact contraction, how my biceps contracting here. And so currently I don't intertwine the two, mostly because I haven't found anyone who's been interested enough to try it. Uh, that being said, if I do come across someone who's interested in trying to figure out how that works for them, I would be more than happy to walk them through it. But it's a really incredible thing. I love to tell the story of the first strongman event that I did. That's my whole thing, right? I'm not an ultra marathon runner. I'm not a strongman competitor. I'm not a hit athlete. I am a hybrid athlete who just wants to challenge myself in any way that I can. And so strongman and ultra marathon running are on two completely different opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what you can accomplish physically. And at my first strongman event this past February, I went into the final event, the fifth event, um, in eighth place out of 10 people in my division. And the final event involved picking up a giant stone that weighed 215 pounds and placing that over the bar. And then your opponent would pick up the stone and place it back over the bar. And so 10 went against 9 head to head, 9 beat 10, then I faced 9. And in practice, I'd been able to do the 215-pound stone one time. I tried the 225-pound stone, which is the next step up. I could not get that up. So 215 was my true one rep max. Now I do psychedelics for all the competitions that I do, right? For those reasons that I just laid out. And while on about 3/4 of a tab of LSD, at this competition. I approached the stone for the first time, and my thought is, okay, if I can get this over one time, I'm going to do proud by myself because I'm going to have matched that PR. But fast forward 10 minutes later, and I had put the stone over the bar 15 times and defeated two opponents. Uh, and the whole crowd was rocking. Everyone's behind me.
Mm.
People are cheering me on because I'm the latest competitor in the competition. And I'm just having so much fun doing this because I'm just defeating my limiting belief time after time after time and giving it everything I've got. And there's a lot that comes down to being in competition and what happens on game day. And a big part of that is muscle memory. It's about, your body responding to the training that you've had. But this is event 5 out of 5. This is 8 hours into competition. And to squeeze 15 reps out of myself, I don't know if that happens without the LSD.
No, I would say not. Definitely puts you in a different state of mind for sure. Have you met anyone else out there that does this? Like not from the start, but that has adopted this program maybe over the years, over the months, and they're noticing similar effects?
There's a couple people on social media. There's this one guy who goes by Buffalo Warrior who's, got a big head start on me as far as running and ultra distance running is concerned. And I think, he's planning on running 500 miles while on psychedelics soon. Uh, but it's not a big community, not by any means.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it has got to do with the stigma around psychedelics at the minute? It seems to be a hot topic with everyone having their 2 cents to contribute.
Well, that's a big thing, right? Stigma, legality, so on and so forth. People don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to jump into something that they're not really comfortable with. And also, it's a little different because the people that you picture as psychedelic users
Yes.
typically don't look like me, right? So I offer a very different approach to both psychedelics and to performance, athletic performance. And so what I was able to do and what I was able to recognize and create for myself is really something that has to be something that's learned through trial and error and through pushing your own boundaries with it.
Do you think fear sort of sets in, or they're just so set in their ways that they don't want to get uncomfortable? And even if it's so, because when you sort of put that back on what is deemed acceptable in society, adopting a fitness program and figuring out how you are going to run the marathon, and you go and see a doctor, make sure your heart's okay and everything like that. Do you think people just don't want to get out of a comfort zone? It might not be to try psychedelics, but it might be that they're so set in their ways.
That's a big thing. We have gotten to
Mm.
where we are in life by doing the things that we've done. And so if there's something like that that is a stark contrast to the way that you've lived your life up to that point, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear. Sometimes just people taking a different pre-workout or a
Yeah,
different
true.
protein powder than they've been used to taking for the last years. So something like psychedelics, it takes a lot of, I won't say courage because I don't want to gas myself up that much, but like it takes something different in your brain to be willing to really see what happens when you mix the two.
It's interesting. You said before that you don't typically have the outside appearance of someone that would be a psychedelic user. Do you think that it's because you've trained your mind to be that way? Like, the people talk about like addiction and stuff, and they're high functioning alcoholics, and they'll go to work for 5 days a week, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but then they'll come back on the weekends and go out with their friends, go out with their family even, and just totally, I don't want to say drink the weekend away, but they are escaping from something, a certain reality, but that's deemed socially acceptable. And then majority are going to wake up 20 years down the line and have a midlife crisis, an epiphany that they've wasted their life or they want to do something differently. And the more and more people I speak to about this, they're like, well, they're just addicted to that in order for them to transfer that into going to work and bringing home money and whatnot. Do you think that you've been able to try it, but know how it reacts in your body? You know what muscles it's moving in different ways in order to then be like, okay, no, I can pull myself back from that. I know what that does. I know what that effect has. I know when that's going to start to wear off. Like, is there a point where these psychedelics do wear off? So in order for you to not be like, oh, I'm not really feeling those effects yet, you know what's happening in your mind and you can kind of out talk it, as one would say, I guess.
What I would say is this: I used psilocybin one time prior to the experience that I had that changed my life, right? I had used LSD probably 10 or 15 times over the time between I was a freshman in college and when I had my experience with psilocybin. And what ended up happening for me when I was trying the LSD is that
Mm.
you start to become comfortable in that state of mind. It no longer becomes this really anxious experience, which is what it started as. It
Yeah.
started as a very anxious experience. Oh my God, do people know that I'm high? Oh my God, am I acting weird? So on and so forth. And it took a good amount of time for me to be comfortable in that altered state of mind, and to just be able to breathe and be able to sit with it and be able to understand my body and understand the different things going on. And so like that year between 2022 and 2023, I started to really get in touch with my body in a super intimate way. Um, you know, partially because of psychedelics and partially just because that's what my goal was, right? A lot of yoga, a lot of like movement, a lot of just understanding body mechanics and things of that nature. And so it got to a point where I said, okay, I can do this stuff that I'm doing physically and be on this, and let's see what happens. And it just kind of unlocked a whole different world, a whole different level for me.
And I like to get people's takes on it because I think we have too much of a stigma in society around it. And, if we're not doing well in one area of our lives, it's not about what your escape is versus my escape. It's ways in which that we can function as a society. And what you said before, going back to the correlation between your web and realizing, okay, what energy transfer are you putting out there? Are you getting it reciprocated back, or is it just a one-way street kind of thing? And slowly, like, being able to change around that situation in order to just better your everyday life. John, someone once told me, like, we're living the lives of our creation and our thoughts create our reality. If you could give us one piece of advice in life, what would it be?
Hmm. Um, find what excites you and go towards that wholeheartedly. Absolutely no holds barred. If there's something that excites you, life is too short to work a 9 to 5 and toil away at something that doesn't light you up every single day. If there's something that lights your fire, go stoke it.
What would be your advice if they want to start something like this? Start researching. What do they do? What would you suggest? We can't all have the experience you had. If they want to, yeah, if they're just curious.
Exactly. Well, I'm an open book, so if anyone out there wants to reach out to me, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with anyone. Beyond that, I urge a lot of people to watch documentaries. So, when I was first figuring out, okay, what the hell happened that I went from destroying my life to being a functioning, productive human being in the span of a month, like what happened here? And so there were a few documentaries, one called How to Change Your Mind by an author, Michael Pollan. And so it's adopted from a book that he wrote of the same title. And so that documentary is on Netflix, and it's a great way to start and really get an understanding of different chemicals, psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, and the effects that they have on people. There's also another documentary on Netflix called Fantastic Fungi. that really is a deep dive into, what mushrooms really are and how they affect us, not just psilocybin, but, different functional mushrooms and different things that, help with fighting wildfires or textiles or, so on and so forth. So it's a really beautiful look into the importance that fungi play in our everyday lives. And Andrew Huberman also has a podcast where he does a deep dive on psilocybin that I think is a really valuable resource as well.
I love that. Well, I'll have to link that all in the show notes and maybe do a documentary on you one day. It's been great to have you on, John.
One day. It's been a pleasure, Jesse.
Thank you. You have been listening to You Are the Compass, and we had the pleasure of John Borden of Get Psyched Fitness join us. Curious on the next adventure? Follow along and let's see where that could be. The musical intro and outro is produced by Ornate Mosh. Interested in your own unique jingle? Connect via the link in the About section of this podcast. Thank you. You have been listening to You Are the Compass, produced and hosted by Jesse Clayton.